What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. I've got some news for you today that honestly has me more excited than I expected. And if you've been following the Blue Jays bullpen situation this offseason, you're going to want to hear this. We're talking about a potential closer addition, and not just any closer, someone who has absolutely owned Toronto for years. So the thought of flipping that script and getting him on our side instead of facing him, that's the kind of move that could shift the entire dynamic of this team. Before we jump in, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already so you stay locked in on all the latest updates. All right, let's get into this. The name that's been floating around is Pete Fairbanks, and according to Ken Rosenthal, the Blue Jays have expressed genuine interest in bringing him in this winter. If you've watched Blue Jays games over the last few years, especially against Tampa Bay, you know exactly who this guy is. He's been absolutely lights out, and more specifically, he's been a nightmare for Toronto. So the idea of not having to face him anymore and instead having him close out games for us, yeah, that's appealing on every level. Now, the Blue Jays have been aggressive in their search for bullpen arms. They were reportedly in on Ryan Helsley before he signed with Baltimore. They looked at Raisel Iglesias. They checked in on Phil Maton. All those guys are off the board now. But Toronto isn't backing off. They're staying active in that second tier of closers, the guys who aren't quite Edwin Diaz level, but are still elite arms capable of shutting down late innings. And Fairbanks fits that description perfectly. Let's talk about what he brings. Last season, Fairbanks racked up 27 saves with an ERA under 3. That's not just solid, that's dominant. And if you look at his performance over the last 3 years, the consistency stands out. In 2023, he posted a 2.58 ERA with 25 saves. The next year, his ERA went up slightly, but he still delivered 23 saves. Then in 2025, he brought that ERA back down and continued to be one of the most reliable closers in the league. Year after year, he's getting over 20 saves and putting up numbers that tell you he can handle the pressure. And that's exactly what Toronto needs right now. Because let's be real, if you're walking into the season with championship expectations and your closer is sitting with an ERA in the mid-4s, that's a problem. Fairbanks immediately solves that. Now, is he Edwin Diaz? No. Diaz is a different animal, and if you can get him, you absolutely do it. But Diaz is also going to command massive money. He's expected to get somewhere between 18 and 25 million per year, maybe even more. He was already making $20 million annually on his last contract, so it's not crazy to think his next deal could push even higher. For a team like Toronto that still wants to bring back Jordan Romano and add other bullpen pieces, spending that much on one reliever might stretch the budget too thin. Fairbanks, on the other hand, is projected to land around $13 million per year on a 3-year deal. That's roughly $40 million total. It's not cheap, but it's manageable, especially when you consider that's similar to what Jeff Hoffman got. And for a guy of Fairbanks' caliber, that's a contract you can absolutely justify. It gives you elite production without hamstringing your ability to make other moves. Let's compare Fairbanks to Hoffman because I think that's where this gets really interesting. Both guys are right-handers who lean heavily on a fastball-slider combo. Hoffman's four-seamer sits around 97 miles per hour, and his slider is his out pitch. But Hoffman's fastball got hit hard last season, especially in high-leverage spots. We all saw what happened in the World Series. Fairbanks has a similar profile. His fastball is a touch harder at 97.3, and his slider has a bigger velocity gap, which makes it tougher to pick up. When he's on, his four-seamer is his best weapon, and the slider finishes hitters off. So you're looking at two pitchers with similar stuff, but Fairbanks has been more consistent over the last few seasons. That doesn't mean Hoffman can't bounce back, but it does mean that if you add Fairbanks, you're creating real competition for that closer role. And honestly, that's not a bad thing. I've been saying this for a while now. I wish baseball would move away from the rigid closer role unless you have someone like Edwin Diaz or Josh Hader who just completely owns it. When you have a bullpen like Toronto's where there's no one guy who's clearly head and shoulders above everyone else, why not use a committee approach? Deploy whoever's hot, whoever's rested, whoever matches up best in that particular situation. If Fairbanks is dealing, give him the ninth. If Hoffman's been lights out, he gets the ball. If someone else is rolling, use them. I get that people love save totals, but at the end of the day, I care more about getting outs in high leverage situations than I do about preserving one guy's stats. And if you have multiple arms capable of handling those moments, you use them strategically. Adding Fairbanks would instantly push everyone in the bullpen down a spot, and that matters more than people realize. You're not asking middle relief guys to close out games anymore. You're deploying your best arms against the best hitters in the opposing lineup, and everyone else slots into more appropriate roles. That depth is huge over the course of a season. Injuries happen, slumps happen, matchups get tricky. Having another elite level arm gives you flexibility that most teams just don't have. And the fact that you'd be stealing him away from Tampa Bay, a team that's been a thorn in Toronto's side for years, makes it even sweeter. Speaking of Tampa Bay, let's look at how Fairbanks has performed against the rest of the AL East, because this is wild. Against Baltimore, he's been solid with a 2.55 ERA and a 1.05 WHIP. Against Boston, he struggled a bit with a 4.03 ERA, but that's probably because he's had to face Rafael Devers in big spots, and Devers destroys everybody. Against the Yankees, he's been decent with a 3.33 ERA. But against Toronto, a 1.33 ERA over 27 innings with a whip barely over 1. He has absolutely dominated the Blue Jays. So, yeah, if you can't beat him, bring him over to your side. That's smart business. And here's the best part. Fairbanks doesn't break the bank. He's not Edwin Diaz money, which means Toronto can still afford to bring back Romano if it makes sense. They can still add a quality left-handed reliever, which is something they desperately need. They can still explore upgrading the lineup or adding another piece to the rotation. Getting Fairbanks doesn't lock you into financial paralysis. It's a smart, high-impact move that addresses a clear need without blowing up your entire budget. And if you're walking into the season with Dylan Cease anchoring the rotation and Fairbanks locking down the late innings, you've got a legitimate foundation to compete for a title. So where does this leave us? Toronto needs bullpen help. Fairbanks is one of the best available options who doesn't cost elite tier money. He's been consistently excellent. He's dominated Toronto specifically, and he fits perfectly into what the Blue Jays are trying to build. If they can get this done, it's a huge win. It's not the flashiest move in the world, but it's the kind of smart strategic addition that championship teams make. You address your weaknesses, you add proven talent, and you don't overpay to do it. That's how you build a roster that can survive October and actually finish the job. All right, I want to hear from you. Should the Blue Jays go after Pete Fairbanks? Is he the right guy to help anchor the bullpen? Or would you rather see them spend more to land someone like Edwin Diaz? And if they do sign Fairbanks, how do you see them using him alongside Hoffman? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this breakdown, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you never miss when news drops. Appreciate you being here. Catch you in the next one.